Let's pick up things there with our Friday segment. That was the week that was. Joining me tonight are Jack Berkman, Republican strategist and president of Berkman Associates, and Richard Fowler, Democratic strategist and host of the Richard Fowler Show on We Act Radio, 1480 AM. You can hear him on Friday nights. So the British press is shaking Mitt Romney like a rag doll. Richard, is it fair criticism or press-generated hype?
I mean, of course it's fair criticism, Morris. At the end of the day, what it boils down to is that Mitt Romney has went over there and he's criticized a foreign nation. He's not even the president of the United States yet. I mean, and he will never be the president of the United States. But I think his judgment was misguided here, and the people of Europe are calling him out on it.
I think Mitt Romney is an expert on Olympic Games. If he wants to offer opinions on the Olympic Games about security, I think that's well within his purview. I remember a guy named Barack Obama in 2008 went to so many foreign countries before the election, it was mind-boggling. I can't even count them. Well, the reality is that Europeans love Obama, all of them. Britain, France, Germany. We all know the truth. They love Barack Obama. They want to get rid of anybody in his way. Obama is enormously popular in Europe. And that's just the way it is politically.
Oh, come on, Jack. At the end of the day, I mean, don't be mad at President Obama because he can gather bigger crowds than Mitt Romney can. But I'm pretty sure Mitt Romney's horses will gather a bigger crowd than the actual
Richard,
nominee will.
You must agree. You must agree. I mean, to be talking about the British press, you know the British press loves Obama, and that's the reason they attacked Romney.
No, that's not why at all. No, hold on a second now. I think what Mitt Romney did is he violated the British people's trust. He talked about having a meeting with MI6. He criticized them as they were working to put the Olympics together.
So you want him to lie?
And the fact that we have a special relationship with the United Kingdom is the reason why, as the fact that he's not president, if he, plans on becoming president, he should really try to handle that relationship with kid gloves at least.
What would you like to do? Would you prefer that he tell lies?
Well,
and
I mean,
say, I think security is
that's not
fine?
it though, Jack. That's not it at all, because what he did after he made that comment is then he went outside and he flip-flopped on it. He's like, well, I really didn't say that. What I really said was that every Olympics has issues, and this is just one of the issues that they're going to fix it. I know they will. Well, so I mean, that's a flip-flop.
If you guys take off your glasses and look at Mitt Romney at a distance, he may look kind of like a Pierce Brosnan, meeting with MI6. You never know. He could be the next GoldenEye.
Well, if he loses, James Bond, right?
Romney heads to Israel next. He plans to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Today, President Obama announced another $70 million in aid for Israel. What's at stake here, Jack?
Oh, I think Israel, Romney, either president. Let's face it, the big problem is Obama has not had a solid relationship with either Israel or the Jewish community. Obama, with what he has said about the 67 borders, Obama as a president has alienated the state of Israel in every possible way that a U.S. president can alienate the state of Israel. That's our principal ally in the Mideast. The relationship is in tatters in every way it can be in tatters.
That's just not true.
Anyone, oh, you know it's true, Richard. I'm surprised you didn't even take the other position. Anyone could do a better job with Israel. Literally anyone.
That's not true. At the end of the day,
Obama.
I think what we've seen from President, I think the people of Israel want peace in the Middle East, and we've seen the president push towards that. He ended the war in Iraq, and he's ending the war in Afghanistan. He's worked on. He stood up and said that Assad needs to step down in Syria, and those are all steps in the right direction to achieving Middle East peace.
But Richard, what does that have to do with the relationship with Israel?
Because it's about regional stabilization. I think the Israeli people will tell you it's about stabilizing the region.
Yeah, but the Israeli people will also tell you they don't like his position on the borders.
But to answer the question, though, Jack, is it not true that President Obama has worked on stabilizing the region?
Well, sure, he's worked on stabilizing the region.
And he's done a good job at stabilizing said region?
Listen, Richard, the man who stabilized the region was George Bush.
Really?
You opposed.
Are you serious?
You opposed. I predicted
2 wars, that's stabilization of a region?
I predicted many years ago that the only thing the Democrats would have to take credit for in 2012 was the Iraq War. And you're hearing the beginnings of that. They're getting ready to take credit for the wars.
Oh,
the reason
Jack,
is,
stop it.
It's true. The reason is, which is a joke, if you remember back to 2008, all they did was criticize.
We are not, listen, President Obama said at the beginning of his campaign that he did not believe in the war in Iraq and we shouldn't have been there in the first place. What the president did was he did everything he needed to do with the drawdown, as well as, equipping his military leaders with the funding that it needed to make sure that we ended the war in Iraq safely, and we made that country safer than it was and when the President Obama started.
All right, guys, here's the problem, though. Dealing with Benjamin Netanyahu, it's not so much dealing with the people of Israel. You're dealing with the right-wing, very conservative, nationalistic government. It would be tough for any Democratic president to get along with Netanyahu, wouldn't it, Jack?
Well, that's true. Republicans, yeah, you're right about that. I'll concede that. I'll stipulate that. Republicans have a better natural ability, and they kind of have a better starting point for dealing with Israel. It's almost like dealing with the Saudis. Those regimes all prefer a conservative government. But the reality is, Morris, Obama, even for a Democrat. I mean, Bill Clinton had done a good job with Israel. He had Israel in a good place by the end of the 90s. That relationship was very strong.
He had the gift of schmooze, I've got to give you that. Meantime, lawmakers in Congress still playing a game of chicken with the U.S. economy. This week, the Senate held 2 votes on taxes, a Republican plan extending all the Bush-era tax cuts, and a Democratic plan extending them only to families making less than $250K a year. Neither plan will pass, so why bother, Richard?
Well, but at the end of the day, I think the Democrats are trying to show the distinction between the two different Americas. There's one America, which is Mitt Romney's America, where the 1% continues to get tax cuts, and you create an economy that's based on them. And then in the Democratic America, it's an America where the middle class gets to thrive and grow. We know the only way to grow the economy is through the middle class, and we've seen the result of that through the President Obama's policies. We've had 9 consecutive quarters of GDP growth. We've created 9.9 million jobs, and on top of that, we've seen 6.7% in GDP growth since the president took office.
You've created 9.9 million jobs, but you had quite a low starting point, so that's not much of a...
Exactly, because of George W. Bush's policies. You're completely right. Jack, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%, Jack.
On taxes, Morris, the problem is, here's the problem. You listen to Richard's argument, the 1% or 2% that he's talking about, they pay almost all of the federal taxes in the United States. So if you're not going to give this group a tax cut, where you're heading in this society is in about 10 years, you'll have fully 90% of the U.S. population eats, sleeps, and exists for its own purposes and really makes no social contribution, pays nothing
Jack,
in terms of federal taxes.
You know better than that.
That's true.
Anybody who's taken Economics 101 in college will tell you that the only way you grow the economy is by alluring consumers to spend, and the consumers are the middle class. And
why don't we see any compromise? That's the problem here, Jack and Richard. The Republicans, they're just having this ongoing match between each other. I want to say what kind of a match it is. It starts with the P, but I won't say that on television. But that's what they're doing. They're just kind of hosing down each other.
Well, you could compromise, Morris. I mean, you could take it all the way up to, say, $2 million in income or $5 million in income. Even that wouldn't be fair because the people above that still pay such a disproportionate amount of the overall federal tax in the country. But Boehner has floated numbers like that to the Democrats. My understanding of the process in the House, well, and the Senate, is that nobody will go above the 250 demarcation. The Democrats at this point aren't even considering anything above.
All right, both candidates spoke to the VFW's conference in Nevada this week. Romney was pretty tough on Obama's foreign policies. He also tied the president to defense cuts taking place in January. He did that in Virginia earlier this month. Is Obama responsible for sequestration or not, Jack?
Well, I would hold him responsible, Morris. I don't think there's any question about it. When you look at the overall spending picture, when you look at the whole thing, I mean, if you look at the whole balanced budget argument, Obama from the start, if you look back to last year, where does this end? I mean, the question is, where does this end? If you keep raising the debt ceiling, if we continue to raise the debt ceiling, which is the essence of this issue, where is the end? Obama and the Democrats would do this year after year after year after year. And every year in September, they would say, well, this is the rational thing to do so the United States doesn't lose its credit rating.
Richard?
I mean, first of all, the truth of the matter is when it comes to raising the debt ceiling, this has been a non-issue until we elected 80 members of the Tea Party that are led by Michelle Bachmann, the leader of the band of maniacs, I would argue. And what they've done is they've turned this government and they've turned this economy in the wrong direction.
Well, do you want to keep raising the debt ceiling?
Hold on a second now, Jack. Sequestration is all on them. President Obama has committed to the deal. He said, we're willing to make cuts. We're willing to make changes. We're willing to make the tough decisions. But the only way we're going to do it is if we can come together on this. They've all signed the deal. Now Republicans want to balk.
Okay, so
surprised? I'm not.
In other words, here's the thing, though. I don't want to. Here's the thing. Is it the case, Richard, that you want to just continue to raise the debt ceiling this year, next year?
That's not what the president's arguing. The president's saying let's make it sustainable and let's make cuts.
Well,
unfortunately, John Boehner's Congress couldn't agree with making any cuts.
Sustainable means massive more defense cuts and no tax cuts.
That's not true.
And no tax cuts.
That's
what sustainable means.
This is the problem. This is the flaw in the Republican argument. They make these big glittering generalizations about what the truth is. The truth is that we're not in any current wars, so we can make a leaner, greener fighting machine of our military if we make the right cuts.
If you go much further, you already went with massive cuts last year, and now you want to go even further than that?
Let me finish. When the Defense Department went to Congress, they said, we don't need this money. We don't need the $79 billion, but Congress gave it to them anyway. That proves the flaw in the Republican argumentation. They're willing to give the military money that they don't need or want.
He's got a point there, Rich. Jack, that quite often the military is saying, wait, we don't want these particular projects because of the pork, because of the people in those particular areas where the congressmen get their votes. They're shoveling that money toward the Pentagon left and right.
Well, there's no question. I mean, if you look at it anecdotally and if you look at it in pieces, but I mean, my point is, if you look at the whole pie, last year DOD suffered massive cuts. I mean, the whole thing, the budget went down.
The cuts were decided upon by the Secretary of Defense.
If they're taking the position that they want to go even further and even deeper, you don't have to listen to Republicans on this issue. Listen to Leon Panetta. Leon Panetta himself has said you cannot take them down any further. That's
not true.
Drastic
Leon Panetta wants to give the $79 million back.
We'll wrap it up there. Speaking of cuts, that's our time to cut. Jack Berkman of Berkman Associates, Richard Fowler, catch him on We Act Radio. Thanks to you both for That Was the Week That Was.
Thanks, Morris.